Hi guys, welcome. So I'm getting ready to cook a piece of salmon and I wanted to show you. And there is quite a method to making really delicious salmon. You want to do a couple main things and I'm going to show them to you today. You can put the salmon in the oven if you prefer, or you can cook it on the skillet. I feel like the skillet cooks it a little bit faster, but you have to beware when you're cooking on a skillet, it does get hot, oils will splash up. And so, or butter, whatever you use, and so just be careful of that, all right? But it does cook it in just a couple minutes. I'm actually going to use some salted butter today because I find that it does not splash as much when I use butter as compared to oil. When I'm using oil, it's like you have to take guard because it splatters a lot. So I'm gonna take about a tablespoon of butter on a nice hot pan. So that's going to be your second tip. The first tip is to use butter, salted butter, to give it a really nice it's not gonna spark up at you, and it gives it a really nice layer of flavor because it's buttery and it's salty and it's delicious. All right, so use butter. Second tip, use a nice hot pan. The hot pan is going to be key, especially if you're using salmon that has the skin on. We're going to use this fresh, well-caught salmon. You can see the beautiful skin there. And when you cook salmon with the skin on, you want to make sure that you're putting it skin side down. But first, you want to take some salt. That's going to be our third tip. Take your salt and season it well on both sides, okay? So take your salt, season it well on both sides. This is going to help the skin crisp up really nice, and it's going to lock in that flavor in the salmon. All right, so you're going to take your salmon, skin side down on the butter here, or oil, or whatever you're using. All right, it's going to sizzle a little bit, and you're also going to notice that the salmon starts to constrict right away. Since the pan is nice and hot, it's allowing the skin to like tense up, and it constricts the size of the salmon. It just gets really nice and tight. It will start to cook well. You're gonna cook it mainly on this skin side down here. So you are going to let it sit. What you can do is take some of the butter as it scoops down, and you can scoop it onto the top here, okay? You can also just leave it alone, but if you're anything like me and you just need to be doing something every second, like annoying your food, then you can do that. But also, it only takes just a couple minutes. You should probably be using a spoon instead of a fork to do this. So you can see the butter is a little bit layered on top. And you'll know this done when it's cooked to 145 degrees, or it gets nice and flaky. You'll see that the fish starts to flake apart, and it turns like pinkish skin color, okay? It's gonna be a very light salmon color pink. If you ever seen, well, if you know what the color paint or crayon color of salmon, that's the color that this cooked piece of salmon is going to look. And the raw salmon actually varies in color. You'll notice that fresh and wild-caught salmon look completely different. And sometimes the farm-raised, the farm-raised and wild, those two colors are very different. The wild-caught fish are caught fresh in the ocean. Farm-raised are fish that are raised in an incubated place. They're fed, man-made food, sometimes corn, sometimes animal byproduct. And you'll notice the stark color the stark difference of color in them. And the wild caught is nice and bright. It was caught fresh. It was eating what it was meant to eat. It was, free in the ocean, and it's this really intense, deep, orangey, reddish color. And then the farm-raised salmon is very pale, very light pink. And sometimes they'll add food coloring to the farm-raised salmon to make it look like fresh. So when you pick it up at the grocery store, you're like, oh, that looks great. But really, so you got to check for things like that. It's better to have the salmon in general. It's good. It has lots of healthy fats in it. It's going to be great for your hair, your skin, your nails. It's going to be good. Healthy omega-3s are good for your brain. It's a great food. So having it, even farm raised, is better than not having it at all. Okay, so don't let me scare you from having it. but just be aware of what you're buying and how you're spending your dollar, because although the wild caught might be a little bit more expensive, it might be worth it in the long run. You know, you're doing something a little bit better for your health. The red food dye is not great. All right, so you're gonna notice here that I'm gonna try to move this around a little bit. Be careful because the butter still does splatter. What I'm doing is I'm just allowing the butter to get a little bit underneath the salmon here so it doesn't stick to the pan. Use a non-stick skillet if you can. You can take some of that butter again, put it on top, and that heat is going to help cook it. You can cook this with the lid on. It's probably a lot safer that way. Living on the wild side here. Wild side. All right. It's going to cook mainly on the side with the skin down. It's going to allow that skin to get nice and crisp. And you're just going to flip it around. Look at how beautiful this color is. You see? I wonder if you can see. Look at that. So this is simply going to cook for just another minute or so until the entire color is even. It's entirely flaky. And also just take a meat thermometer, stick it in, make sure it's at 145. And then there you have it. You have this really delicious. That skin is so crispy, guys. So if you're not a fan of fish, just make sure it's cooked properly, all right? And then give it another try. So a lot of times we don't like certain veggies or foods because they were not cooked properly. So you don't cook it too much. Make sure you don't dry it out. Take it off as soon as it's done and enjoy it. Give it a try. And let me know what you think, all right? Bye, guys.